All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the 21st episode of Core Unit Launchpad Sessions. I'm Retro, a contributor with the Sustainable Ecosystem Scaling Core Unit at MakerDAO. And today I'm joined with the proposed Core Unit team for Immunefi. Immunefi's proposal is currently in the formal submission phase with about 5 days left, with over 50,000 yes votes, no votes, and no abstaining votes. So Immunefi represents the first decentralized collaboration between decentralized organizations. And I won't steal any more of the team's thunder and turn it over to Travin and Joshua to learn more about Immunefi. Gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Retro. I'll start sharing my screen now so that I have some slides to share. Please let me know when you guys can see the slides or see my screen.
Yep, we're seeing your screen.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Perfect. So, hi, I'm Travin Keith. I'm one of the co-founders of Immunefi. First, I'd like to apologize. I'm a bit sick at the moment. Unfortunately, our bug bounty program doesn't deal with health bugs, but I hope we get to that soon because it's annoying working while sick. Yeah, we have the mission to just basically systematically improve security for builders, end users, and other stakeholders by providing both reactive and proactive security services to the Maker ecosystem. This is very different from what we're usually doing. A lot of what we do is slightly proactive and slightly reactive. It's focused just having a bug bounty program for our clients. And so this is a little bit of a new expansion for us, and we're happy to be working with the Maker ecosystem for it. As Retro mentioned, there's a collaboration between decentralized organizations where we want to try to scale growth the right way. It's been brought up a lot during the RFC period where there were questions of why are you becoming a core unit? Why don't you just be a regular third-party supplier? Other organizations that have been doing that for Maker, whether as a foundation or after decentralization, have asked us why we're also doing the same. And one is because we want to be more proactive. If we're just a third-party supplier, we tend to be reactive. We have to wait for the respective core units to reach out to us. And if as the Maker ecosystem grows, there's going to be more core units. We have to wait for them to reach out to us or wait for somebody to say like, hey, I think this core unit could use your services. By being a core unit ourselves, we then get more immersed into the ecosystem. And yeah, we start proactively looking for ways in order for us to improve the security of the ecosystem as a whole. The second part is continuity. So for example, I'm one of the co-founders of Immunefi. If we were just a third-party supplier, it could just be that somebody else takes my role because I say as a co-founder, I need to jump over to something else. So there's a commitment for me personally, and not just Immunefi, to continue providing the service and putting my name on it as well, and making sure that if ever under Immunefi services, because there's other services the company itself will provide, if the people there have to change, it's my responsibility to make sure that a lot of the things that were done before continues on in a very smooth manner, which is very important for security. And lastly, it becomes a lot easier to interact with the ecosystem. A lot of the decision making is done at a core unit level instead of as a third-party supplier. Therefore, we're able to put the ecosystem's needs first, and not just saying, as an overall business decision of Immunefi. So I know it's also a risk from our side. So we also had to, of course, to talk to some people from our investors and my colleagues. But I think that this is really the best way forward, and we're happy that the Maker ecosystem has welcomed us so far with, pushing this forward. So a little bit of background. So Immunefi is the largest bug bounty program in the crypto ecosystem. We've prevented about $2 billion in loss of funds. Just a few weeks ago, this was actually just around $1 billion, but a bug report for Polygon was disclosed on our platform, which prevented a loss of $850 million. We currently have about 57 million in rewards available for just the critical vulnerabilities. That includes both smart contract and blockchain vulnerabilities, as well as web and app vulnerabilities. And so far, we've paid out $7.5 million in rewards. So we've encouraged a lot of projects to have reasonable bug bounty programs that match more with regards to the damage that can be done. And we're happy that both sides, both the hackers and the projects, have been very happy to push this growth forward. We've experimented with providing additional services in the past. So one thing I'll be talking over a bit later is the operational audit, which we've called in the past as a full spectrum security audit. And we've also done war room and incidents response. But we haven't really fully packaged this, but this is something that we'll be doing for the Maker ecosystem. And yeah, we'll be providing other services as well in a more proactive manner. We'll be actively looking into ways that we can provide additional value as a core unit to the Maker ecosystem. You can take a look at our website to see our bug bounty platform. All of these other services are not on there, but feel free to reference our MIPS for more information about each of them, but I'll be going over them in this presentation as well. So the Immunefi Security Core Unit team just basically has two direct team members, myself as a facilitator, and Joshua, who will introduce himself later as a deputy facilitator. Immunefi Security Services will be the one that's providing the bug report triaging, content creation, incident response, and the operational audit, although of course I myself and Joshua will be involved in those steps along the way to make sure that they are properly implemented and taking over when things are needed. Additionally, we'll also be collaborating with other third-party suppliers, which we will be talking over in this presentation later on. But first, more about myself. As I mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of Immunefi, together with two others, Duncan Townsend, who's our CTO, and Mitchell Amador, who's our CEO. I've been working full-time in the cryptocurrency space now for over 5 years. I actually began that time while I was living in the Arctic in Longyearbyen and Svalbard, and haven't looked back since. Been very happy with that decision. I've been an independent consultant for a wide multitude of projects, both centralized and decentralized, ranging from startups all the way to government organizations. So I actually did a project with the European Commission a few years ago. I've had a lot of experience around open source and open organizational aspect around open source. So I've been a contributor to the Open Source Initiative. That was the organization that defined what open source was back in the 90s. I have over 10 years of startup and small business experience, both growing them from just at the bootstrap stage to helping startups that are in the Series A or Series B stage really scale up and move forward. I've been a regular public speaker, talking about blockchain, cryptocurrency, freedom, and open source, both to small meetup groups. Sometimes I've spoken to groups as small as 10 and conferences as large as 2,000 attendees. And now I'd like to let Joshua introduce himself.
Yeah, so I have about 30 years of software engineering experience. I got a PhD in quantitative psychology about 10 years ago, and I was an early 2017 maker investor and community participant. I haven't done any software development for Maker, but I've been participating in the forums and chat pretty consistently since then. And kind of the thing I wanted to highlight in my role in this core unit is that I'm not employed elsewhere, and so I'm like 100% Maker aligned, and so that makes me kind of like the connector between Maker interests and the third parties that we're contracting with, and so I think I'm in an important piece of that, of kind of stitching together all these organizations. And I was also recruited by Juan from the SES core unit. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, shout out to the SES core unit for really helping the Immunefi Security Core Unit take its shape. I'm very happy for the work that all of those people have done. So I talked about some external partners that will be helping us out. So one is Chain Security. They've actually been working with Maker for quite some time now, so I'm sure you guys know about them fairly well. Yeah, they're quite a reputable auditing firm here in Switzerland, and so for me, I'm also very close to them geographically. So if ever I do need to get to them, I can just take a 30-minute train ride or drive and knock on their door and scream at them if we need something. We're also working with DeFi Safety, so they provide security scoring for various DeFi projects. They've been working with a lot of different security services that they've been considering, and we're happy to work with them to essentially take that into the market. And they have a lot of security background experience, so we're happy to bring their expertise over to this core unit as well. So our vision is a maker ecosystem with the right security measures, including regular self-evaluation for continuous improvement so that builders and users can focus on innovation and adoption. We plan to achieve this to two main areas. One is security operations and two is community support. I'll be going over each of these individually. So for security operations, it's the identification of critical infrastructure, the creation of a bug bounty program, of course, and the third is incident response facilitation. The identification of critical infrastructure is just basically where we try to create a list of critical people and infrastructure around the maker ecosystem where we need to track that information, as well as to set up proper monitoring tools, basically so that we can make sure that we would know if an attack is happening, if something's going wrong, and if things are relying on other things. There have been some cases before where, let's say, A is a very critical component of security, but relies on something around B, and which B relies on C. So therefore, C becomes part of that critical infrastructure, even if it doesn't directly get identified itself as something that's critical. And we've been doing this in collaboration with DeFi Safety. As I mentioned, they've had some different scoring mechanisms that they've been implementing throughout various DeFi protocols, as well as their own security expertise to identify all of these and to be able to make some proper prioritizations. With the bug bounty program, of course, because we're Immunefi, we'll be also creating an industry-leading bug bounty program that'll really put MakerDAO at the top. With all of the expertise that I've had, so I've actually written the drafts of over 90% of all of the bug bounty programs on Immunefi. I've been the one who's having to deal with a lot of the unique issues between hackers and projects. So I will make sure that the bug bounty program for MakerDAO is really top of the line and industry best. We'll be also working with chain security for additional triaging for these bug reports. So we ourselves will also be doing the triaging of the bug reports for initial filtering. Normally, we just provide light filtering, but in MakerDAO's case, we'll actually be delving deeper into the bug report, making sure that it's actually something of substance. And once we determine that it is something of substance, but because, of course, we don't have in-depth knowledge of the MakerDAO ecosystem as a whole, we'll be sending that over to chain security, who then has that expertise to further triage that bug report before sending it over to the relevant core unit. After the bug report is, of course, submitted and fixed and the hackers paid out, we'll be also happy to write a postmortem. We've been doing this for a lot of our clients. Fay Protocol is one of them. You can take a look at our Medium blog page where you can see all of the postmortems that we've done for our various clients. It's a really great way to create additional transparency in the space because it goes over the bug, it goes over details around the bug bounty payout, and yeah, it just basically puts everybody in a good light. Depending on the circumstances around the bug report, we can even provide some PR assistance. Of course, we'll be working with the PR core unit and the relevant core units involved to make sure that really maximum positive effect can be reached by having this bug report come out. So basically then after this bug report, everybody is a step forward at least. And third, under security operations is the incident response facilitation. Sometimes this is called as war room. I prefer incident response because it gets a little bit less of a military mindset. But basically this is having a set of procedures and coordination in the event of an actual black hat attack on the maker ecosystem, whether that be stealing funds directly or permanently freezing funds or even temporarily freezing funds. I understand that there's a lot of work that's already being done by various core units, and we're looking forward to collaborating with them. It's one thing I want to emphasize. I know that some of these things have already been done by other core units, and we are not looking to compete against other core units. We are absolutely looking to collaborate. We're trying to make sure that what we do matches into the ecosystem. So yeah, we've done this before. Primitive finance was the first one that we've done. We've done a couple of more, but I'm not allowed to talk about them, unfortunately. But let's just say it's gotten to the point that whenever somebody calls me and say, okay, there's an emergency, I don't go, oh no, I say, oh, here we go again. But of course, we'll be getting other people to help out with that as well. So don't worry, it won't just be reliant on me. Joshua, of course, as the deputy facilitator, will also be there. Immunefi Services, and as well as our other third parties will get involved. Now on to the community support side. So it's two things. One is the core unit operational audit. So this is the full spectrum security audit that I mentioned. And the second part is education and advisory. With the operational audits, it's basically an audit of everything other than the software code. So we go over, hardware choices. How do you get code published? How do you go about your daily life? Things like that. And basically, we're going to try to not be overly paranoid. I'm not going to make everybody in the maker community do what I do with like 4 different phones and multiple different laptops. We're going to be reasonable and actually find what the realistic threat models that the various core unit has, and then provide some support with regards to getting those addressed. And then, of course, doing regular reviews to make sure that those ideal security levels are maintained throughout time. As I mentioned, we'll be working with DeFi safety, and this is one of the areas where they'll really come in. With their scoring mechanism, we'll be able to quantitatively determine the security level of every core unit that we do the service for. And of course, figure out ways to help them out to make sure that their score only continues going up. With education and advisory, it's basically just creating security resources to the other core units and the wider maker ecosystem. So these are 2 very different approaches, of course. With the core units, it's something that's going to be more specific towards them operating as a core unit. So this will be things like core unit office hours, where we're kind of just on call and we can answer questions, as well as we just create content proactively that we find that could be useful for them. And for the wider maker ecosystem community, it can just be things with like how to stay secure on Discord, how to stay secure on Telegram. We've already had some of this content published, sort of like this on our Medium blog, and we'll try to make that more specific towards the maker ecosystem. So yeah, those are all of the 5 services that we'll be providing as a Immunefi Security Core Unit. Again, as I mentioned, we'll be very proactive about this. So if there's something that we see that could be very beneficial, we will definitely consider providing that service as well. And yeah, collaborating with other core units to try to get that service provided and implemented, because there's, of course, providing and implementing. So our roadmap, initially I had this with October, but we've successfully gone through that month, and I can say that we've done everything that we meant to do. So, in November, we did our formal submission of the various MIPs. Very grateful for the support that we've received so far. Finalized the draft of bug bounty program and overall structure. The reason why this is going to be a separate thing is just because of the complexities around the payment for the bug bounty program, and it's just really necessitating to be its own thing, because there's a lot of things new that will come with that. And with community support, we'll be beginning planning and launch of social media channels. Actually, Joshua's already started going around asking people about ideal content that they would like to see, so that we can try to take into account the desires of the community as it is right now, and try to match that into our content planning calendar. So in December, we anticipate our core unit launch, assuming a full positive vote, and we'll be also posting our bug bounty program MIP. Sorry, I was just corrected recently that it's actually going to be a separate MIP. It's not going to be considered a sub proposal, given that it's a very separate thing. And yeah, we'll be starting to set up weekly calls for office hours and general update calls. We probably won't have a lot in December given the holidays, but we'll probably try to at least have one and maybe have it a little bit holiday themed. And we'll be launching our community channels also during that time. One of them will be within the Immunefi Discord and will be specifically for the MakerDAO Immunefi Security Core Unit. In January, we plan to have the formal submission of the bug bounty program MIP and finalize certain initial incidents response procedures. We've already started that, so that beginning work on that was in October. And we hope to finalize a lot of this by the end of January. And yeah, we also aim to complete the identification of the various metrics that we need to take into account for to detect nefarious activity. And yeah, to have our first regular content publication in January. In February, we plan to organize the creation of backups for the various critical monitoring infrastructure. So this is part of the critical infrastructure identification, but then this part is more about setting up to make sure that those areas are properly monitored at all times. And we're also going to commence the first fire drill. So we haven't decided yet exactly how we're going to do this. This is something that we're working with DeFi safety for. But yeah, we plan to use this fire drill to get more information with regards to the areas of security that we need to focus on more, as well as the core units that we need to work with more towards becoming more secure, because we've identified them to be either problematic or absolutely critical in certain situations. We also plan to launch the bug bounty program during that time. Of course, coordinating with PR teams so that we can make sure to get the most out of this. And yeah, begin the core unit operational audits for at least 2 core units. We will be hopefully providing that at least by the end of February. We might have more core units if determined necessary throughout our feedback gathering process, but at least we aim for at least 2. One quick comment with regards to bug bounty program. There is no additional costs or anything like that for onboarding on Immunefi. As with all of the other bug bounty programs, there's no onboarding fee for us. Speaking of fees, here's a quick overview about our budgets. So our quarterly budget comes out to $122,000, including the contingency buffer of 15%. Just a quick note with regards to chain security, that is a consumable expense. So if ever they're not called in, they don't get paid. Basically, we continue on the agreements that are currently in place together with protocol engineering, but we basically just take it. We then are the ones paying chain security if we use their hours, but if not, we don't pay them. Our yearly expense is just basically the company setup. It comes out to $2,500. I was able to get a pretty good deal. We won't be going over full details around that, but I can definitely say that we will have that set up before the anticipated core unit launch. And we have certain one-time expenses as well. So we have some hardware and software expenses. And also with Chaos Lab. So the hardware and software expenses, you can see further on the budgeting MIP. But basically, it's any hardware and software that we deem could be beneficial for the community or that we need to use. So we were actually hoping to use a special video conferencing tool for this call, but unfortunately, because of certain issues and it being more focused for a private discussion rather than an open seminar type of thing, it wasn't really ideal for this presentation. With Chaos Labs, so that's also a one-time expense, but it's something that we will be reviewing as things move forward. Basically, it's a tool that we will be able to provide to the bug bounty hunters so that they can properly set up a dev environment to look for bugs on MakerDAO. And yeah, with a contingency buffer that comes out to $70,725. And I'll hand it over to Joshua to talk more about the MKR expenditures.
Yeah, so this core unit really only has myself and Travin as being kind of holding the fort, so to speak, and then we're going to be coordinating between MakerDAO and the in like DeFi safety and chain security, these other organizations. So the Maker incentive will only be given to Travin and myself, and we're following the schedule recommended by SES. So these numbers, this is like the maximum amount of incentive payment, and depending on how much we actually work or any changes, if we bring on new people or if one of us leaves, then this budget will be adjusted because these amounts are for the individuals working, not for the core unit. So it should be pretty straightforward to this is a kind of like a standardized following a standardized spreadsheet that SES provided me. That's where I got these estimates. So that's all I wanted to say about it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So here's some frequently asked questions that was provided to us either in private or public throughout the RFC period. So I'll just quickly go over them before we open things up to more questions. One, why is this a core unit? As I mentioned at the start, it's just a way for us to be way more productive, proactive in the ecosystem, because then we are part of the ecosystem instead of just being an outsider providing a service. Second is continuity. I'm then locked in personally. Of course, if something happens to me, that's going to be different. But overall, I have a personal commitment to providing the service and to make sure that the core unit runs well, instead of just being, again, a third party where I could just hand it over to somebody else. Third is, it's easier to interact with the ecosystem because it's more focused on the best interests of the Maker ecosystem instead of the best interests of Immunefi. Why does the facilitator not have many hours? Well, as I am a co-founder of Immunefi, my focus is with Immunefi. Of course, a significant, or rather a notable part of that is dedicated to MakerDAO. I have many other tasks that I have to do as a co-founder of Immunefi. But that's also another reason why we have a deputy facilitator with Joshua, who can take over a lot of the duties that normally facilitators do, but at the same time, actually be able to work 100% for the core unit itself. And as Joshua mentioned, he's been around the Maker ecosystem much longer than I have, so he has a much better understanding of the Maker ecosystem and its needs. How are the third-party payments structured? So with chain security, I already mentioned that. With DeFi safety, they essentially have bulk hours that we purchase as we need. So there's actually a chance if we don't need so many hours that we won't even use a lot of, the full year estimate, but rather less than that. So it's on an as-needed basis. And with Chaos Labs, it's based on usage. That's the estimate that was provided to us based on the bug bounty hunting activity that has been done on our platform, also taking into consideration that what has been done in the past on the previous, currently still existing HackerOne bug bounty program for MakerDAO. But it's not a requirement at all, just to be clear, for bug bounty hunters to use what Chaos Labs is going to be providing as part of this core unit. And yeah, why does the bug bounty program require its own MIP? It's just because it's a very complex thing. It's very different from the regular budgeting as a whole. So you'll see further on how unique this is once we post that on the forum as a request for comments about how unique the payments will end up being. It's not something, of course, that you can just pay in advance and then wait and hold on to and then pay out as needed. So because of its complexities, we just determined it to be best to be something separate entirely. The processes involved in it is also going to be a little bit different. I can't share too much yet because a lot of it hasn't been finalized, so I can't go in depth, but you'll be able to see this in December. So yeah, thank you very much for listening and attending here. I'm very happy, again, to speak in front of the Maker ecosystem. I've been a not really, I wouldn't say like passionate follower, because that would be lying, but I've been somebody who's identified how Maker kind of pushed through the early years where even I was one of the skeptics. So I'm very happy to propose this core unit to the ecosystem and happy to receive all the support that we've gotten so far. We can open things up to more questions now.
Great. Well, thank you, Travin and Joshua, for that detailed explanation. One of the more thorough core unit launchpad sessions in terms of providing a schedule and cadence for the initial launch of the core unit. If anyone does have questions, please go ahead and post them in the chat and we can work to unmute you or ask them. Main question that I have is related to the bug bounty, and like you mentioned, it's not formally approved or presented yet, but I would kind of like to probe a little bit at what you guys identify would make Maker's bounty program one of the industry leaders, knowing that you have written a majority of the programs that have passed through Immunefi so far.
Well, the reward will definitely be larger than most of the others, but it's also the structuring of just making sure information is clear to the hackers. We've noted some bug bounty programs, they have large rewards, but the documentation is just often, hackers, when they start working on a bug bounty program, they're not guaranteed a payment. If they only get paid if they find something, and they have to invest so much time just understanding how everything works. And if we can get that time shorter, it'll invite more people to look into the bug bounty program and actually be able to, take that risk. Especially with MakerDAO, it's such an established protocol compared to all of the others, it's actually quite daunting for a lot of the hackers. So if they're going to see like, okay, it's MakerDAO and I have to do all of this work just to get a chance to get a reward, it's going to really discourage them. And so, yeah, that's something I'm going to address head on to make sure that everything is as smooth and streamlined as possible. There's still work, of course, but yeah, just going to have to try to make it easier.
Hey, I had a quick question. I noticed like in the engineering coordination calls, a lot of the bottleneck around product release and really moving ahead with certain initiatives is in regards to code security, auditing, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious, is your team thinking about, recruiting more security researchers kind of in-house to really provide kind of like not an in-house, because obviously you're a separate core unit from the engineering teams, but something like an in-house auditing firm that that the engineering teams can fall back on or use as support on top of the several other firms that we might be waiting in line for?
So that's not something that we're actively looking into at the moment, mainly because the relationship with the existing auditors is quite positive, at least from what I've seen. So we kind of don't want to, again, we don't want to compete where we can just collaborate. So we're happy to collaborate with Chain Security in this regard. With regards to addressing the long wait times with the various auditing firms, that's something that we're seeing, industry-wide. Building an auditing team in-house is going to be something that's quite big. So, I mean, we're happy to collaborate with other core units if that's really deemed something that's necessary. And again, this is something that, we're open to feedback from other core units, and we can see where we can come in to help out. But for now, it's something that we're not actively planning on. But yeah, happy to have that conversation with the relevant core units later on.
Awesome question, David. Appreciate that. Another question that comes to mind, or something that I'd love to have some more detail on, is the process surrounding defining the security risks for the personnel. Like you mentioned, you have multiple cell phones and laptops. What are some of the steps that you're envisioning, I guess initially, that you identified that can make Maker's personnel security more robust?
Well, it's threat modeling first and foremost. Like, the reason why I have all of this is, one, partly for fun. I know my idea of fun is very different for most people. But another is like, yeah, what are these people involved with? I mean, if it's somebody who is not in charge of publishing code, they don't need a privacy-based device. If it's somebody who does not have one of the keys to the multisig, okay, they don't need to have a separate dedicated device just for the 2FA for communication access, because I don't want that, if they are actually a multisig key holder, then communications with other key holders becomes very relevant. If they're not part of that at all, their security requirements are much less. So yeah, we were gonna try to make this very practical. Yeah, basically we're not gonna make the PR core units start getting like CULPS OS and make them stop using any other device. So yeah, that's how we're envisioning it. It's gonna scale. We're gonna make sure it scales adequately. We understand that, I've worked in tech support before. You don't want to implement a system that sounds secure but can be implemented absolutely horribly. You have to be very understanding with the human aspect of it. I'm not a developer, so I have to think about that to myself sometimes, although I've failed, granted, a few times and almost bricked my phone, not understanding where my limits lie. But that's at the forefront of my thought. And I've talked to Joshua as well about this, and one of the reasons why I really liked him, and very happy with the introduction from Juan, is that he also has the very much the same mindset here. We don't want to make people's lives difficult.
Maybe I could just add a little bit. There is, in my career as a software developer, I've mostly been on the other side of the fence. Like the security guys are always a pain in the neck and asking me to do things I didn't want to do, and I had to kind of work around their policies. So I understand how much of a drag it can be, and we'll try to minimize it as much as possible.
I'm going to be eagerly awaiting to see the recommendations for the strategic happiness core unit. That's for sure. Going on the theme of personnel, Joshua, you may be better suited to answer this too, but Travin, you mentioned that your time will be limited so between Immunefi and MakerDAO. And I know that there's a lot of tasks just to run the core unit from a facilitator perspective. Do you guys have plans to expand, even if it's just more of like a clerical role within the core unit? Or is that something that you guys are looking to shoulder and continue carrying for the near and potentially mid-future, mid-run?
From my side, I'll let Joshua answer as well later on, but so far I think that both of us will be able to handle it. I want to also re-emphasize the Immunefi security services aspect. So, I'm going to get my colleagues to help out with this as well. Yes, it'll be through Immunefi, but we do have much more help. I know that, in terms of the team is Joshua and I, but there's much more people behind this. Yeah, I mean, with the content itself, I'm already talking to some of my colleagues about it at Immunefi in order, for what we can deliver for the maker ecosystem. So yeah, but in terms of considering to bring somebody else, I mean, I'm not going to say right now that absolutely not, but it's something that we will be open to and will be vigilant of. We're going to respect our own limitations as well. Hopefully I learn that as well, because I've been pushing myself a bit too much lately. But yeah, it's something that we'll be definitely keeping tabs on. But Joshua, you can add more.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have much more to add. I'm just trying to kind of learn the ropes and see how it feels and try not to overcommit myself. And we'll see how it plays out and be agile.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. It's going to be very cool to see the external partners that you guys bring in and then manage. The questions are still open. It seems like the chat is a little bit quieter. The last question that I would have for the group to end on, if no others come up, would be your philosophy on proactiveness and reactiveness, especially when it comes to something with security. Do you guys have a defined framework that Immunefi follows to try to prioritize some of these tasks being either reactive or proactive, or is it more of a case-by-case, protocol-by-protocol approach for developing that framework?
A lot of it is very case by case. I have to say MakerDAO is one of the more decentralized protocols that I've seen. So it's a very different approach compared to other decentralized organizations. And of course, even much more than centralized organizations where, there's somebody that I could call. Like if it's a website, there's somebody out there who can shut down the website if something is going on. It's very different here. So a lot of things are going to be custom built. A lot of the procedures we probably wouldn't be able to use anywhere else. And that's fine. But that's why, again, also that we have to make our own security core unit here, because we have to really understand how the ecosystem works in order to be able to deliver a good service to the ecosystem. So yeah, our philosophy is this is unique and we're going to have to take it very uniquely. I know also each core unit is going to be different. And it's this is an area where there's not a lot of previous case studies can tell me about. This is a very unique space that we're pushing towards with high innovation, not just from a tech front, but from a social front. And that's what really makes this fun.
Excellent. With that, then I give you guys the final word. If there's any last minute things that you guys would like to include, and then with that too, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys, either on the forum or Discord, or a preferred method for follow-up?
For mine, I'm on Discord, on the SES Discord. Like I said, we'll be opening up the Immunefi Security Core Unit Discord channel as well on the Immunefi Discord. So I added the invite to the last slide of my presentation there. But on the forum, you can also reach out to me by sending a direct message. I also have my contact information on Telegram there on the facilitator onboarding MIP. So I can reach out there too.
Perfect.
Joshua?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm available on the forum and Discord, and it should be easy to reach me by email also.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to update the forum post for the Core Unit Launchpad call with the recording, as well as relevant links to get a hold of you guys. And very excited to see the outcome of the formal submission. It's trending in the right direction, and very excited to see the work that you guys produce. So thank you everyone for joining the call, Travin and Joshua especially, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a nice day. All right.